Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Invictus Racing League No Assist Championship. My name is Gareth, otherwise known as Captain Stiff, and tonight, yes, we are here. It's round 5. It's the No Assist Championship or I should say, in Montreal, Canada. And luckily and thankfully, I am joined once again after his return from the Australian Grand Prix by my co-commentator Sab. Good evening, Sab.
Good evening. It's great to be back, and I'm back for such an iconic race as the Canadian Grand Prix. Should be an exciting race this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Canadian Grand Prix, one of the tends to be one of the fan favourites around here. We always find the cars go very well around here. We have some incredibly fun races, like last season in the Gnosis Championship. We had an absolutely fantastic race around the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and it's one of those tracks that really promotes close racing, but equally it's almost that street-like circuit feel where you're so close up against the wall and so many points to the lap that the drivers will really have to be driving on edge tonight, won't they?
Oh yeah, definitely. And you don't get much closer than when the end of the lap when you brush, so to speak, the wall of champions. Many people in F1 have collided in there, and it's easy to hit when you're pushing for that fastest lap in qualifying, or you're really pushing to chase somebody down in the race. There's close walls around here. It's fast, it's furious, it can normally give you rain or mixed conditions. So this race normally gives you a mixture of everything. That's why it's really exciting. That's why I cannot wait for this race tonight.
Absolutely, and as you were saying, that final chicane before the Wall of Champions turn 12 and 13, it's incredibly high speed. The guys will be entering around 93 miles an hour and then exiting around 124, so exit speed around 200 kilometers an hour. And there are big curbs on that inside curb on either side, on both the right hand and the left hand part of the course. So you find yourself, yeah, if you hit one of those curbs, it sends the car skywards, and once the two front wheels are off the ground, there's no steering involved whatsoever. So I think the guys will definitely be wanting to make sure they get a good run through the final chicane, because otherwise you'll find yourself careering towards the barrier into the Wall of Champions. It's a longest straight around here. It's 1.16 kilometers, zero point 0.7 a mile. That's that long back straight from the hairpin turn 10 all the way up until the final chicane. Full throttle's around 67% of the lap. Gear changes about 56. That's 1,960 over the race distance. Like I said, 13 turns. It's a 2.72 mile circuit, 4.36 kilometers. Top speed the guys will be doing tonight is 330 kilometers an hour. That's around 208, and they'll be doing that on that approach to that final chicane. And the distance to turn 1 is relatively short. It's 260 meters, just over zero point 0.1 of a mile. It's actually the second shortest on the F1 calendar. So a lot of cars thundering down to turn 1. Not that much room to make an error into it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've experienced it myself. Online racing, you can run into the back of somebody quite easily if you're in the midfield from qualifying. You've got to really be smart and choose your braking points. If you're at the front, you've got more of an opportunity to brake later and keep that position. But if you brake just a fraction a bit later, further down the field, you can end up running into the back of somebody, losing your front wing, and possibly taking somebody else out. So it's a real tense part of the race, that first part, because it could potentially ruin the whole race in that first corner for yourself.
Absolutely, and Montreal, it's one of those climates, much like what we get over in England, where you can never quite work out what the conditions are going to be. We see bright sunshine, and equally you can find it with torrential downpours. Of course, you hark back to the 2011 race, that one of the best races of all time, with Jenson Button's famous victory there, where it was absolute monsoon-like conditions. They had to stop the race, and it was actually the longest race in history going on after a 2-hour delay. It took over 5.5 hours to get that race completed. So hopefully we won't be sitting here for 5.5 hours. I'm sure a very jet-lagged Sab won't be appreciating any further time being awake. But
No.
yeah, it's one of those tracks where it's you really have to watch out, because you could be driving in the dry in one session, equally the next session you find it being completely different conditions.
Yeah, that is definitely true. And the last race I was with you, we had mixed conditions in Spain, so fingers crossed we can have the same again, because that was a thrilling race last time out. And like we say, Canada can bring such mixed conditions. You never know what it's going to give you. Like you say, it could be raining at one end of the track, completely bone dry at the other. So these guys are really going to have to keep an eye on their strategies and stuff, especially when they find out the weather conditions later on, because do they go for a wet setup in qualifying if it's going to rain, or it's a tough one, but it's going to be challenging for these guys. It's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the grip level around here, especially in the dry, it's still quite low. It's not a particularly frequently used circuit, so it's one of those. The track level is quite low down. It's quite slippery, especially into the second sector, and there's a few long or elongated chicane style corners. So it's one of those ones that it's very easy to make a mistake. And possibly, if we see a dry qualifying session, the guys might look at possibly letting the track rubber in, let a few other guys go out there and just set a little bit of the black stuff down on the track, just get it a little bit grippier for everyone else, because especially when we go out there, if it is dry to start with, it will be very green. But we've seen last week, obviously, in Austria, the qualifying session was under extreme wets, and in that session, Sammy the Pitto, the championship leader at the moment, absolutely dominated the session, took pole by 8/10 of a second over everyone else. So if it is wet tonight, look for Sam to be a definite threat and force in the race.
Yeah, he's looking strong. It's his debut season in this league, and he's really laying down the marker, especially seeing that he's a tier 2 guy, and he's at the minute showing the tier 1 guys how to do it. He's really looking good at the minute, but he does have Schofield, who is hot on his tail just behind him. He'll be hoping tonight to finally pick up that win. He's been getting on the podium regularly. Just that last step he needs to get up onto now.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam having, oh, there you go. So it's nice blue skies above Montreal for these guys tonight. So pretty much exactly what they wanted. Be interesting to see what we get later in the race session, whether we get a little bit of rain. But as we see, it is going to be nice and clear for the guys. No one out on track as of yet. We'll look to see who does go out and set that first timed lap. And we've seen the two Mercedes of Boy Better Know OSB and Joel V520. They've gone out together in various qualifying sessions in the season so far. So possibly the Mercedes will be looking at doing the same sort of thing. Maybe even kind of helping each other with a tow down the back straight in the casino straight down into turn 12 and 13, and then down into turn 1. You can definitely pick up a lot of overspeed there. So it's one of those things, if the teams really want to play tactics, that might be a beneficial use of a driver out on possibly a slower lap.
Yes, definitely. Yes, you can get a very good tow down that back straight. It can just give you that little bit more speed going into the final chicane for the final run to start finish. So who knows? There could be tactics playing here. We've got Renner 9. He's the first guy out on track, and he's currently, I think, what tyres is he on? He's on the Ultras at the minute.
Yeah, so tonight the tyre compound choices the guys will have is the pink hyper soft tyres, the purple ultra soft tyres, and the red super soft tyres. So the super softs are the hardest compound available, showing just how quick these guys will be going. Obviously the hypers will last the least amount of time, ultras will be your middle compound, and then the supers will last the longest. But it's going to be interesting to see what strategy these guys go for. Obviously those hypers, like I said, won't last very long, so that will probably put you onto a 2-stop strategy unless you can really stretch out a set of supers. And we have seen in the past people go from the hypers onto the supers, but it's incredibly tricky, and you have to really look after those tyres earlier in the stint if you're going to get them lasting towards the end of the race. But from your perspective, Sab, what would you be looking at? Would it be a 1-stop? Would it be a 2-stop? What would take your fancy when it comes to strategy?
Like you've just said, that's hypers to ultras. It requires a lot of patience and a lot of tyre management. Me personally, I'm not very good at tyre management, so I couldn't possibly go for a hyper soft strategy. I'd probably go on the ultra softs, run that bit longer, and then go on to the super softs later on. Me personally, I would go for a 1-stop strategy. If I was to go on a hyper soft, I would have to go 2-stop, and I'd have to really push the car and try and get as many places up to make sure that two-stop strategy isn't going to hinder me later on in the race. So me personally, I think I'd go for a one-stop strategy. I'm not sure how you would play it tonight.
Yeah, I think it's the one. It's definitely looking like it will be the preferential one. Was to see Renault's going to come around the final chicane for the first time. He's going to be the first one setting a timed lap. He's just going to be in the one, or just into the 111s there. So it's a 111 flat for Renault 9 in the Haas tonight. So a good banker lap there from Renault. Will sit on board with SJD 1988. He's in the Toro Rosso this evening now, coming towards turn 8 and turn 9. Run it out wide onto the rumble strips here. Oh, he tucks it in ever so slightly. Now it's down to the hairpin. Obviously, you saw huge action here in 2007 with Robert Kubica in the BMW Sauber. Probably one of the worst incidents I've ever seen in Formula One. Then came back to recover to take the race victory in 2008. So superb recovery. Good to see him back in the F1 grid this season in Formula 1. But SJD is coming down the final straight now, the casino straight into turn 12 and turn 13. Gavpig does a better time. It's a 1:9.1, so much faster than Renault there. He's on the hypersoft, so you can see the disparity between the two times there. SJD does a 1:12.6, but it looks like it was an invalidated time. Schofield is going to come across the line. He's going to start his final lap. He's out on the ultra soft tyres at the moment. And good evening to everyone watching the stream tonight. Thank you for joining us. Let us know in the comments, in the chat, what you think, what they think the best strategy for this evening is. Are you watching it are we watching anyone in particular? What are your thoughts, predictions when it comes to the race? Let us know. We're more than happy to get engaged with you throughout the evening. Sitting on board here.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go on.
The only person at the minute we've got out there on the super softs is Nevermiss, so maybe he's looking to just put a bank a lap in and see what he can do on the supers to see if he can get himself high enough up so he can maybe look at a stronger, faster stint towards the end of the race. So if he's gonna, he's just locked up slightly into the final chicane. He's coming towards the start-finish straight now. Can he do a strong lap on the super softs? It's put him up to a 1:11.2, so 2/10 off Renault, who did it on the ultras. So not a bad lap there from Nevermiss.
Yeah, good lap there from Nevermiss. 00. He goes into 6th at the moment, but we've got Schofielder crossing the line now. He's going to go into 3rd with a 1:9.7. Gets dropped down immediately by Sammy Pepito, championship leader. He does a 1:8.9 on the Ultrasoft. So look at the top two at the moment. You've got Phil and Sam quicker than drivers out on the Hypersoft. So the Ultrasoft tyres at the moment are working very nicely, and we've seen in the paddock and before the race that Phil has been very confident around here, especially on the time trial, and his TT was very confident and happy about his pace. So yeah, Phil currently sitting at the top of the standings and very handily indeed with 1:8.432 on the ultra soft tyres.
Yeah, it's a cracking lap that, isn't it? It's going to be interesting to see if he was to run on the hypers, what he could possibly do if he's pulled out that time. But that for me is a good start. That it's really setting the mark for everybody else, because in the minute we've only got a couple of others who are on the hypers. So it would be interesting to see if people do have to revert to hypers, or they will stick to the ultras and go longer in the first stint.
Yeah. And as we were talking about before, the two Mercedes are out on track, both following each other now into the pit lane. Looked like Joel was on a flying lap, but invalidated into turn 8 and 9 earlier in the lap, so he's bailed out of that one. So the two Mercs now pull into the pit stops. Obviously, looks like Joel's first in, so Scott's going to have to annoyingly wait for his teammate to get pulled around into the pit garage there, as will go on board with Stifler 1980 in the McLaren. He's now coming around turn 8 and turn 9 down towards turn 10 at the hairpin. Quite a tricky turn around it. You've got to get that apex just right, because you go slightly deep into it, it can really compromise your exit speed, especially heading down one of the main straight and the DRS straight on the circuit. So one of those ones where it's almost a critical corner on the racetrack, would you suggest?
Yeah, definitely. Because if there's a guy following you close behind and he gets DRS, you're pretty much a sitting duck down that straight if you've not got that run up there, and then you can quite easily get overtaken into the final chicane and into the start-finish straight. So yeah, it is, like you say, it's a critical part of not only in qualifying to get the run down, but also in the race, because it can easily invite people to put plenty of pressure on you and to possibly get an overtake put on you. So you've got to get that right down there.
Absolutely, and we're sitting on board here now with Nismac 7. He's down in 15th at the moment, yet to set a time. He's out there on the hyper soft tyres. So the two Renault drivers, his teammate Gav Pig's currently sitting on the second row of the grid in 4th. He's done a 1.9.141, so sitting quite nicely in the top half of the table. We'll see what his teammate is. Oh, he's going to absolutely clout the Wall of Champions on the exit there, turn 13. That's a really disruptive time, and it's a 1.92, so it's a good lap from Nismax, but I would imagine he's probably shaved off a couple of tenths off that time there by hitting that wall. Just got a little bit too hot into turn 13, and unfortunately for Nismax, that's probably cost him at least 0.2 of a second. He may have found himself in third position if that wasn't the case.
Yeah, that is unlucky for him. I'm just watching SJD now. He's now on the hypers. He's headed towards the start-finish straight. He's coming up to set his first lap time, and he does a 1:09.5 on the hypers. So not a bad lap, not great. You'll hope he can improve on that.
Now, obviously, we haven't seen the weather report as of yet, but by the looks of what the drivers are doing, they're all going for the hyper soft tyres, which would lend me to think that you might possibly see some rain in the race, because there's not much, as you can see, there's no guys going out there looking for a split strategy, going out possibly on the ultras or on the supers. So with a lot of, well, pretty much all the field now out on the hyper soft tyres, it looks like potentially, unless they're all just gunning it for pole position, as Phil does a 1.79 superb lap there from the McLaren driver, puts himself back up into provisional pole. That 1.79 by the McLaren. But yeah, possibly with everyone out there on the hyper soft tyres, we might be expecting a little bit of rain come race time.
That's a good spot, actually. Yeah, I didn't notice that until you'd said that. But yeah, everybody at the minute is now setting laps on hyper, so you could well be right. It could be the case of they're having to just get the very best out of the hypers, because they know it's going to possibly be raining at the start or raining at some point in the race. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. We've got a yellow in sector 1, and we've Sam's the pitter at turn 1 was off the track, and he's on his way again in his room, so no big dramas there by the looks of it.
Yeah, the exit of the pit lane here is one of those ones where it really shoots you out into the halfway through the corner of turn 1, so it's one of those ones where you have to really watch out for the guys coming around the first two corners, because it feeds out right into the entry line of some of these guys. And equally, if you're looking in your mirrors and looking towards your right hand side, it's very easy to miss your braking point and find yourself in the wall, as Sam did just then. So yeah, it's one of those ones, and it's almost a little bit of a cruel mistress of a pit exit, because you really have to be aware to your surroundings.
Yes, you definitely do. Yeah, it's quite unforgiving, this track, isn't it? There's Speed Queen brushes the wall there. I was just watching Speed Queen, could not have got any closer without hitting the wall there. Absolutely on it, Speed Queen at the minute. She's currently in third in her Ferrari. But yeah, as I was saying, it's one of those tracks, I think, no matter where you are on the circuit, if you get it wrong, it is going to bite you. There's not much in terms of runoff area, and it is going to hurt you. That's why I love these sort of tracks better than, say, your French Grand Prix, where you've got tons of runoff. This, if you make a mistake, you are going to get punished, and that's how it should be in Formula 1, I think.
Absolutely, and at the moment it's Phil that's doing the punishing, and look at the gap he's got between the rest of the field at the moment. Speed Queen comes around the final chicane. She's going to come across the line. DRS is wide open. Can she get anywhere closer to the McLaren driver? She does. She gets up onto the first row of the grid. It's a 1.85, so she sits 0.6 of a second behind Phil. But look at the gap he's got over everyone else. It's a 1.79 for the McLaren at the moment. You've got Gavpig and Nismax in 4th and 5th at the moment. They've done a 1.91, so it's a 1.79. So look at it's a 1.1 second lead that Phil's got over 4th place at the moment. So Phil absolutely on fire tonight in this qualifying session.
he's certainly laying down a marker. I'd be surprised. I'm probably going to do a commentator's curse now, but I would be surprised if anybody beats that tonight. Because Speed Queen was absolutely on it on that last lap, and 108.5 is a fantastic lap, don't get me wrong, but it's nowhere near Phil's time, and can anybody beat it? I just can't see anybody beating that lap time now.
No, it's Gav Pig. He's going to come around the final chicane now. Does he come across the line and improve? He does, but it's a 1704, so he doesn't move up, but he stays in 4th position. 18704, I should say. He stays in 4th. Nismax and his teammates still in 5th position, but the cars are starting to stream back out onto the track. We've got 4 minutes and 30 seconds left in the session, so a lot of cars now starting to come out and try and set those final laps, possibly putting a little bit of extra fuel in there and doing 2 laps on these Hypersoft tyres if we are expecting, as Scott hits the wall on the exit of turn 13 there. That's going to compromise his exit, but he moves up to 7th. It's a 195 for Boy Better than OSB. That's Scott. He currently sits 2 thousandths of a second faster than Renner and 5 thousandths of a second faster than SJD. So the times are very close in the midfield.
And finally for Stifler, he's managed to just get his first lap time in. He must have been invalidating his lap times. I've just been watching his lap there. He's just jumped up to 7th place, just ahead of Scott, Boy Better Know, with a 109.3. So they're really from 7th down to 11th, even 12th. There's not much in it at all. It's really close in that midfield at the minute, and a couple of tenths here and there can jump you up 5 places in a minute. And the problem is, I think, at the end, when it comes to qualifying it on this track, especially towards the end of qualifying, everybody's out on track, and this is where you could end up with traffic because it's just a short lap. If you don't get right position on the track to get your run, you could end up catching a slow driver up who may not be aware you're coming up behind him, and suddenly that lap time's gone. So it's all about picking your positioning right and making sure you can get a good lap time in, as Sam has just gone 2nd ahead of Speed Queen with a 108.2. So the lap times are getting close to Phil, but not close enough yet.
No, and like Austria last week, where that lap time is around 65 seconds, or only around 70, or not even that, 67 seconds, 68 seconds roughly. But so it's another, as you say, another quick lap. So these guys really on edge for those 60 or so seconds, and it's one of those ones where we see the 2 Mercedes trying to use each other. We saw Joel, he's out there on the ultra soft tyres, didn't manage to get a competitive lap. It was only a 110.2. Like I said, out there on the harder ultra soft tyres, so possibly run out of hypers, and he's up by 7 tenths of a second. So Joel doesn't look like he's going to be improving at all. So we'll go on board with Nicky 9095, who's going to be coming across the start finish line now to set a time. He puts himself in 5th position. It's a 192.55 for the Ferrari. Moves into the race seat after Mike's departure to partner Speed Queen 80 in the Maranello team. So Nicky enjoying his promotion up to Ferrari, puts himself up into 5th position.
Yes, so Scope, he's not had a great qualifying by his standards so far. He's in 7th place. He's just started his next flying lap on the hypers. We've got a yellow flag in sectors 2 and 3. I'm not sure what that's for, but yeah, Scope, he's going to want to improve on this time so far. He's just dropped down again now to 8th because of an improvement. So ideally for him, he's going to want to be in the top 5 if he's going to fight for this win tonight. And hopefully for him, that he can pull off a better lap time on this current run. He's just heading down to the bottom hairpin now in sector 2. We've got another yellow flag in sector 3. I'm not sure what that's about. He's locked up slightly, ever so slightly, and now he's on his way down the back straight, headed towards the final chicane. Can he improve? Or with Nicky's retired from the session, I don't know, was there an accident there? I'm not sure.
No.
Scope's coming now down to the final chicane. He's heading off to the start finish. Can he improve on his 109.3? He does. He's up to 5th with a 108.9.
He was 300ths of a second slower in the at the exit of sector 2, so he's made up almost 4/10 of a second through the final corner there. So great exit there for Scopefielder. SJD equally, he did well. He got himself up as 6th position. Or he's just been jumped. The two Renaults once again moving up into 4th and 5th position. Phil MCFC, our current pole sitter, and with time expired, is out on track, and he's not going to be completing another lap. He's currently happy with his 1:7.903. We're on board here with Renner 9. He's currently just under a tenth faster than his fastest time. So at the moment, that would promote him up. That would promote him up into 10th position. As we see Humberstone there, he's 109.153 in 8th position. Oh, and the Renault hits the wall on the exit of turn 9 there. Just got in too hot onto the entry of turn 9, hit the curb, and it just speared him into the wall. So really unfortunate for Renner. He's going to find himself outside of the top 10. It looks like the only one out left on track that may be on the lap is Nismax 7. We'll look to see if he's going full pace down the back straight. It looks like he's coasting. Yeah, he is coasting. So it looks like that may be your results for qualifying tonight. And what a lap from Phil MCFC, a 1:7.903. He's the only driver to get into the 1:07s. And Sab, what a lap from the McLaren driver.
It was never going to get beat, was it? I didn't want to put the curse on him, but that was absolutely phenomenal lap from Phil. If he could take this sort of speed into the race, then I can't see anybody else beating him at the minute. It's a phenomenal lap. Sam sort of there with the 1:08.2. On another day, he probably would have got pole with that, but Phil absolutely pulled it out of the bag there. So congratulations to him on that fantastic pole lap.
Yeah, Phil been very quick since he joined, or rejoined, just to say, the league. Its qualifying pace has been right up there, but it's that race pace that he's really struggled with. It's just maintaining or keeping the mistakes at bay, and so if Phil can keep it out of the wall tonight, he's going to be right up there in contention to take the victory. And what is interesting is Scott and Jolfi 520, 13th and 15th position, and here are your qualifying results. It's Phil MCFC, he takes pole. Sammy the Pitto championship leader is in second, Speaker in 80 and third, Gav Pick and Nismax, two Renaults in fourth and fifth, Scopefielder is in sixth, SJD in seventh, Humberstone is in eighth, Nicky 9095 is in ninth, with Stiffer 1980 in the top 10. Renner 9 is in 11th, GP1 Alex in 12th, Scott is down in 13th, Nevermiss in 14th, and Joel V520 is 15th place. So yeah, the two Mercedes, awful session for them. They will start well down the order.
Yeah, 1.5. Scott was 1.5 seconds off Phil on the same tyre. That's massive, isn't it? Really, I expected him to be further up. Like you say, it was an awful qualifying, and there we go. There's your answer. You got it right. That's a downpour.
Yeah, so it's extreme wets by the look of it. These guys will be starting, and you can see the puddles in the pit lane and on the start-finish line. They will, I imagine we'll see a lot of guys go for those blue-walled extreme wet tyres, shifting as much water as possible. But the problem, and I believe it was Performance 2 last season, equally had rain around Canada, is the spray, especially in the first lap or so, is absolutely horrendous. So these guys will have to be ultra careful, especially on lap 1.
Oh, definitely, yeah. They're going to be pretty much crawling down to the first corner from the start, because you try anything silly down here and you could have like just a big pile up on at the bottom, and 5 or 6 guys out. We could hopefully have a really good race where we don't have a pile up. You never really want to see a pile up, but you want to see a bit of drama, so hopefully there isn't a pile-up at the beginning and we do get a good race with plenty of drama, plenty of action, because this weather certainly is going to probably bring that for us.
Yeah, absolutely, and it doesn't look like there's a break in the cloud at the moment, so here the guys slowly making their way for the formation lap. Oh, is Phil spinning their tyres and actually putting it into the wall, so that shows you just how tricky it's going to be, and this really does neutralise the field, because they were, as you saw, Phil was absolutely untouchable in qualifying session. First thing he does when we get to the race is he puts it to the right hand side, puts it into the wall. So what that's going to do is that's going to light up Sam the Pito's eyes. He's going to be, you know what, you're struggling to get it away, and I did so well in Austria in the wet last week. So Sam possibly with the mental advantage already.
Yeah, you're right there, because that will have woken him up slightly, Phil. There, he did not want to be doing that beforehand, but maybe doing that might make him a bit less aggressive at the start, and for him might be able to get away better. We don't know. Like you say, Sam is definitely going to see this as an advantage and hopefully take advantage of it in his eyes, take advantage of it, and possibly pip Phil down to first corner and take the lead early on. It's going to be interesting this start. If the pole man Phil can lose it quite easily like that at the start, well, we could have it all the way down the field with anybody really. It's that tricky conditions. You can see them coming down the back straight here. It's torrential weather.
Yes.
Absolutely, I don't envy him at all.
No, absolutely not. It's the standing water all over the place, and the potential for aquaplaning is absolute maximum. And you can see these guys will be as tentative as you like around the first lap, and this is really where these guys will be heavy breathing behind the wheel, trying to make sure they don't spin the tyres, because it's hard enough getting off the line in the dry, let alone in the wet. So we are in store for an absolutely superb race here. Round 5, the No Assist Championship with Invictus Racing League. We have 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. They're out, and we're finally away. Do we get away? They feel like hell for heaven. Finally they're away, and it's a much better getaway from the McLaren, but it's the Williams has got a superb launch off the line, and Sam takes the lead into turn 1. We've got, looks like everyone's slowly getting through nicely. There's not too much contact. Nicely done there. Sam Lopito leads into the first few corners. Phil MCFC's down into second. Gavpig's made it up into third. He's jumped Speed Queen 80. Phil almost getting tagged in the rear end by the Renault there. Sam the Pito, we'll see, can he get it slowed down? He can, but look at these guys cautiously making their way around, and like I said, the rain doesn't look like it's repenting anytime soon, so these guys will have to get these tyres as warm as possible. Obviously very hard in the wet conditions, but Sap, how was that for a start?
Yeah, I was mainly watching the midfield and towards the back there, and there was some unbelievably close side action racing there, and not one guy managed to get in touch with each other, hit the wall. Oh, we've just commentator's curse right at the back. Nicky has just had a collision with Renner, I think it was, down at the bottom hairpin, and I'm not sure if he had too much contact, but we've now got a 3-4-way battle going down to the final chicane here between Nicky, Renner, SJD at the minute, and they're side by side. They surely cannot all go through there together, and they've somehow managed to all go through there together without any contact. Amazing driving there, really, in these conditions.
Yeah, Gavpig going wide at the hairpin, went deep in, and he ended up I think just ever so slightly clipping the wall, but when trying to recover back to the circuit, he got right into the action between Scopefielder and Speed Queen 80, and I believe tagged the rear end of the Red Bull, but luckily doesn't look like anyone picked up any damage. But yeah, as you were saying, some superb battles into 12 and 13 there for the guys. We saw a 4-way battle between 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, and equally down towards the end of the top 10, and we saw another superb battle. As we see down at the back, the two Mercedes battling out over 12th and 13th for the moment, but Stifler 1980, he looks to have had an incident earlier in the session, as Never Miss is going to keep it just about in a straight line, struggles to get it slowed down for turn 9 there.
I don't know if you also noticed Renner the first lap picked up a 10-second penalty for corner cutting, so that has really put him at a disadvantage already in this race, which is not good for him at all. But we've got even more great battles at the back here. I keep watching at the back in a minute because there's some fantastic battles. Both of the Mercedes will be hoping to improve on where they are. We've got Renner who's come into the pits now, so it's gone from bad to worse for him, unfortunately.
Oh, and the Renault of Gavpig all over the place at this lap. He's kicking the rear end out, can't get the power down. He's being absolutely swarmed by the Haas and the Sauber GP1 Alex and the Humbo Stone behind. He almost hit the wall in the exit turn 13. The car was almost at a 45-degree angle, just about managed to keep it in a straight line, and then equally down into turn 1 had the two behind all over him, but he's managed to bridge a little bit of a gap out over this first sector and almost into the second now. But look at the gap that Sam has already stretched out into the lead at the moment. It's 3 laps in, he's already got a 3.5 second gap, so superb start for Sam.
You beat me to it there. I was just about to say the same. Sam is absolutely on it in a minute. Obviously, he's got the advantage of not having spray or anything in his eyes, so he's got a clear run of the track, even though it's still tricky conditions. He's taking full advantage of it. 3.5 seconds now over Phil. If he keeps building this lead up, I can't see him getting caught at this rate.
No, it looked like we may have just had an incident as well there between Nismac 7, and I couldn't quite see. It looked like it was a Haas driver, which may have been Renault, it may have been the recovering Renault, but yeah, I saw there was definitely a car sideways on the exit of turn 9 there, so guys still out struggling. You can see the darker line appearing on the racing line, but it's not clearing that much water. The rain is still absolutely sheeting down at the moment, so these guys will definitely have to deal with this for the coming laps at least. And we're on board with Humbo Stone. He's 0.3 of a second behind GP1 Alex at the moment. They're fighting over 6th position. They've got SJD not far behind, so these guys, it's it's hard enough to follow the car in front and look in your mirrors in the dry, let alone doing it in the wet.
I've just been watching Scopefield and Speed Queen. They've been trading positions for 3rd place. Speed Queen and Scope both side by side at one point, but Scope has now started to pull a little bit of a gap out, just under a second. It was side by side for the first half of this lap 4. They've been having a good ding-dong battle at the minute. Scope started off well for him. He's made up 3 places. He's up to 3rd at the minute, exactly where he wants to be, and hopefully for him he'll want to try and close down Phil and make a move for 2nd place.
We've got GP1 Alex, he's sitting behind Gavpig, the Renault, who's good. Oh, he's hit the wall, and that's hit Alex too. We've had a huge accident here on the exit of the final corner, and there's cars all over the track. We've lost Humbo Stone, GP1 Alex, and Gavpig in the final corner. Absolutely devastating crash for the guys there tonight. Oh, look, you can see there's just machinery strewn across the final corner here, and guys having to really be careful to make their way through. And really disappointing end to the race there for GP1 Alex, who was all over the back of the Renault of Gavpig. Gav hit the wall. That car just stopped, obviously, and unfortunately for them, it just became a little bit of a domino effect there. Alex was so close behind, he had no way of stopping. Straight into the back, and equally Humberstone following the 2 behind, straight into the back of those 2. And luckily for the rest of the field, they managed to make it through, but it's brought out a safety car.
That's possibly the worst thing for Sam, the safety car. He built over a 4-second advantage over Phil, and he was building that gap up, and now the safety car is just going to bunch him right back up again, and he's going to have to be looking in his mirrors again. So hopefully, for Sam's sake, he can build this lead back up again after the safety car's gone. But yeah, for him, it was the worst possible scenario. Virtual safety car would have been fine for him. I'm not surprised the safety car's come out, seeing the carnage down there. It's the perfect answer, but for Sam's sake, he'd have hated seeing that news that the safety car has come out.
Yeah, absolutely. The leader had a 3.5 second lead. He's going to shortly pick up the safety car in the first sector now, and like you say, he'll be pretty gutted with that. He's lost that entire advantage that he'd built up in the first 5 or so laps of the race. But as you can see, the rain's still coming down, so we're still easily in full wet conditions. You can see the puddles on the offline, especially through the second sector. So these guys, this is a problem in this here is they would have got those tyres up to racing temperature, and this safety car is just going to lower it again. You're not getting the same load into the brakes, the same G-force going through the tyre laterally, so the tyres will naturally start to cool down, and this is a real issue for the entire field.
It really is, yeah, because when this safety car does finally go in, the tyres, they've not warmed them up and kept them up to temperature. You could easily lose it when the safety car goes in and you let fly again. The safety car is staying out for another lap, I think, because the lights haven't changed on top, so we've still got another lap of the safety car. So yeah, this is a crucial point for the guys at the front and the whole of the guys, really, because if you don't keep that temperature up in these tricky conditions, you could quite easily lose the car and be out of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. And what this has done is it's really brought some of the guys. Oh, as Sam has hit the wall on the exit of the final corner there, and he's left his front right-hand side of his wing with it. So Sam, he's hit the wall under the safety car, and he's going to require a pit stop. So race leader, massive mistake there for him, and he'll be absolutely devastated with himself there. Completely caught unaware. Was just trying to warm the tyres up, and obviously put a little bit too much power down through the final corner, and he's hit the wall. And as Scott picks up a 5-second stop go for collision with his teammate Joel V520, so it's all going on behind the safety car.
It's a bit crazy, isn't it? It just shows you what weather like this can do to a race. I did not expect Sam to do that, and it's probably caught him out and probably potentially ruined the chance of winning the race now. If he's damaged his front wing to the point where he has to come into pitch, from looking at him now, it looks significant enough that he's going to have to pit for a new wing, which is probably going to ruin his chance of winning the race. But like you say, what on earth is the two mate guys doing further down the field? Why are they colliding with each other? God only knows. But the safety car is coming in this lap, which is good news.
Well, it's good news for the field, but it's worst possible scenario for Sam, who's going to have to pit outside of a safety car period. Surely he's holding back and warming up those tyres, but he has no right-hand side to that front wing, so he's going to be massively disadvantaged. So look at him, he's trying to stretch out that gap possibly. Is he going to try and follow the safety car in? Oh, he slows right down once again. That's bunched up the field. Is he going to? No, he's going to stay out. So Sam, he's going to try and brave it out there with no grip whatsoever, and well, no downforce, as Renner picks up a 3-second time penalty. He picks up a multiple warning. Oh, we've got Phil all over the back of Sam.
Sorry to interrupt. Stifler has just completely lost it at just after the champions wall of champions. Sorry, he's completely lost it. He come round the corner and was sideways going through there, and he's full on hit the wall and absolutely ruined. He's got no front wing left whatsoever. And at the same time, Renner picked up another penalty, a 3-second time penalty. So he's now up to 13 seconds now, which pretty much ruined his race.
Yeah, so these guys really struggling on these wet conditions at the moment. But look at this downforce issue that Sam's got with the lack of front wing. Is just means he's going to get swarmed. Phil is all over the back of the Williams drive at the moment, and it's almost you'd think that the race stewards would be looking at whether he's going to be causing a danger to the opponent or his fellow competitors, because obviously that car will be all over the place in the braking points. He'll be very slow and he won't have the same grip levels as the rest of them, so possibly look to see a flag come out and tell him that he has to come in and pit and put a new wing on, because surely he cannot try and stay out until the pit window and maintain this position. And if he does so, it's a pretty remarkable feat of driving.
It would be, yes, but I think he does have an advantage, the fact that it's wet weather, so it's going to be always Phil. I feel like Phil went really deep there. He does have an advantage because it's wet weather. You are running slower, so it might be easier to maintain it with a damaged front wing. Because if, for example, you're in the dry conditions and you've got damaged front wing and you're going much quicker, it could be a lot trickier to keep that car on the track. So if he can, and without DRS as well behind him, which can attack, so if he can maintain it with a broken front wing, it would be a remarkable feat for him.
GP1 Alex joins us in the comments, says cannot believe that happened tonight. And yeah, sorry, Alex, that was an awful incident there. Obviously nothing you could do about it whatsoever. Caught up as a passenger. Would love to know your thoughts on how the race was going up until then. It looks incredibly tricky out on track at the moment. What were the conditions like to drive in? But out on track at the moment, we've got a good battle between the two Mercedes at the moment. They're catching up to the Ferraris, but the rest of the field is forming a train behind race leader Sam, who's still managing to maintain the race lead at the moment. But look at the grouping of cars that he's got behind him.
Yeah, the safety car period really has hampered. But as Scott Boy better known, who's just picked up a 3-second time penalty for multiple ones, so that's added on to his. I think it was 5 seconds what he got previously, so that's not good for him at all in 6th position. But yeah, as I was saying, Sam, the safety car has completely wrecked his race so far. It's allowed the pack to catch up with him, then he's got a front wing damage, and now it's like he's on damage limitations at the minute. He's just doing what he can to make that car as wide as possible to stop people from overtaking him. But like you say, he's starting to form a very large train behind him now.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott currently closest on track to a move. He's only 0.3 of a second behind Nicky 9095 in 5th position at the moment, but Scott is going to have to deal with a couple of penalties after the race. So if he's going to try and maintain a championship challenge, huge snap there of a loss of grip on the exit of turn 9, but if he's going to maintain a challenge, he's going to need to clear these two Ferraris and try and get a decent haul of points, because at the moment it's not been a great session for the Mercedes driver, who although is starting to drop his teammate Joel V520 ever so slightly, who's now just under 3 seconds behind.
Yeah, it's a tough race for Scott, isn't it, at the minute, as Nicky is all over the back of Speed Queen right now. Joel's just picked up a 3-second time penalty for multiple ones. Nicky is his new teammate, his new Ferrari clothing. He's wanting to try and do a Charles Leclerc in Australia, but will there be team orders coming out and being told that he cannot overtake Speed Queen? It remains to be seen, because the minute he's all over the back of Speed Queen, putting severe pressure on her to either let him past or to just stay in position. It's going to be interesting what the Ferrari are going to call here, whether they're going to keep it as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Speed Queen 80, our current reigning no assist champion, Nicky 9095, has been a race winner in the past, although he's now got Scott all over the back of him going into turn 8 and turn 9. But like you say, will the Ferraris battle it out, or it's Nicky's currently sitting on 10 points in the championship. Speed Queen's up on 36. She's taken 2 podiums already this season in Spain and in Japan. So Nicky is always going to have Scott going up the inside of him down into the hairpin. Scott's not going to get a run out on him. He's going to have to tuck into the slipstream and try once again. But in these conditions, going side by side, the person off of the racing line, they're going to be on the puddles and on that standing water, so it's really treacherous here if the guys want to make an overtake.
Yeah, it really is. Scott is starting to mount more and more pressure on Nicky going down into turn 1. It's a good battle here between the two Ferraris and the Mercedes. At the minute, nobody's really been super brave and trying to dive down the inside. They're being very clever at the minute, taking the time. They don't want to cost themselves a damaged front wing or worse, as SJD has just pulled out a 1:22.3 fastest lap so far in his Toro Rosso. But yeah, like I was saying, these guys want to make sure they get the overtakers. We've got a yellow flag in sectors 1 and 2. What has happened there? I'm not sure.
Nothing that I can
With Nismak was running slowly. I think it was involving Nismak. I'm not sure what happened, but I just seen him running slowly there at the back.
Renner and Nevermiss fighting over 10th and 9th position at the moment. They're the closest on track. Renner 9, just behind the Sauber. Obviously the young Sauber driver, relatively fresh, 2 no assists, and it's definitely this is how you learn how to do it, because you'll have to do it in the hardest conditions, and Canada is providing a pretty tricky customer when it comes to the race. But the two starting to catch up to Nismax. So like you say, Nismax possibly getting caught in an instant. The two Renault drivers, after doing well in qualifying, unfortunately not being able to move it over. It looks like he's going to try and make a move to the inside into the chicane. Not quite. He pulls out of it at the last minute, but it's a pit for Joel 520 and for Nismax. They're the first ones in front to come in and set the extreme tyres on.
Sam's still doing a fine job at the front at the minute. It's currently at 7/10 over Phil. Scope's not far behind, and Speed Queen also with Nicky not far. Again, oh, we've got another yellow flag in Sector 1. Oh, we've got Renner is sideways. I don't know what quite happened. Did it involve SJD? Because they have swapped positions now, so maybe. But Renner was sideways in his pass. And what has he just come into the pit? So that is not good for him. He's not having the greatest of races, Renner, unfortunately for him.
No, Ren, of course, he's in trouble with the stewards after that corner's cut early in the race. He was battling with Nevermiss, who's now in 7th position due to Joel and Nismax's pit stop. So Nevermiss up into a decent points paying position, but we've still got this train for the lead at the moment. And you've still got the two Ferraris looking at an overtake on each other. Nicky's still staring at the rear end of Speed Queen. In fact, this is the closest he's been in the last few laps. Does he look to a move at the inside, or is he going to just sit behind his teammate? He doesn't do anything rash into the first corner. It's one of those tracks where you really have to pick your point when you're going to make that overtake, because the wrong move and any wrong decision will find yourself probably not the number one fan of everyone in the paddock. So it's one of those ones Nicky will have to really make sure he sorts out where he's going to get that move done and possibly not upset the Ferrari team. Or as he cuts the chicane there, we've got a yellow in Sector 3. Is it Joel 520? He's just dropped below Nismax 7.
Phil at MCFC is still putting pressure on Sam. He's probably closer than he has been for the last 3 laps now, and he's bringing along with him Scope at the minute. Speed Queen's just a little bit off, 1.2 seconds behind Scope. So at the minute, Phil just ran a little deep there, and it brought Scope a little closer, but they just can't seem to get that bit closer to Sam to make a overtaking move on him. They get close enough in the tricky twisty sections where a fully front wing would be beneficial, but when it comes to straight out, where's Sam? Sam's gone into the pits. Sorry, I wondered where he'd gone then. He disappeared for a second on my screen, but Sam's now in the pits, assumedly going for a front wing change and tyres.
Absolutely commendable driving from Sammy the Pitto, championship leader. He's just done the last 6 or so laps with no right hand side to his front wing, so superbly well done for him, staying out without having to make an extra pit stop. And he managed to keep the entire field behind him. But this is where Phil really needs to set some good laps. In fact, he's not going to do it if he goes round turn 6 like that, almost sideways. In fact, Schofield is going to be all over the rear end of him heading down towards turn 8 now. But these two really need to get on with it, because obviously Sam, he's going to have taken that wing change, so that's going to be an extra 6, 7, possibly 8 extra seconds in that pit stop. But he's now going to be out on fresh tyres compared to these guys out on the used extreme wets. And these are the tyres when they start to, as you see, Phil's gone deep into turn 10 there. That's going to allow Scope up the inside. It's not going to quite get it done, doesn't have the traction on that standing water, but Phil starting to live a little bit dangerously now.
Yeah, Scope's on the hunt now. He can smell bloody. He's gaining. Phil goes defensive and defends well there, but Scope's going to want to take advantage here. You can clearly see that Phil is now struggling on these tyres and probably will need to come in soon as Scope is running down the outside. But again, Phil defends well, and he's just picked up I've clearly seen him then. He cut that corner and he's just got a 3-second time penalty for his troubles of doing that. So if Scope finds that out, he knows he doesn't need to overtake him now later on to take advantage of him.
Yeah, Phil running over the apex of turn 1 then. He picks up a 3-second time penalty. Speed Queen 80, she's not out of this at all. She's only in 3rd position at the moment, and she's dragged her teammate Nikki 9095. So we've got a battle for the lead. In fact, we've got a battle for first place at the moment. Schofielder goes down the inside of Phil, heading down towards turn 8. Does he get the move done? He does. By the looks of it, it's going to be close, and there you go. Schofielder takes the lead. Phil struggling now on these extreme wet tyres. He's going to have Speed Queen all over the rear end of him down into turn 10 at the hairpin. Does she make a move to the inside? She doesn't. It's going to have to be very neatly done there, but look at the Ferrari. The Ferrari driver is going to be smelling, like you say, smelling blood in the water, and both of the two of them will be looking at getting past Phil, who seems to be really starting to struggle on those extreme wet tyres.
I would not be surprised if he comes straight into the pits here. He surely cannot carry on like this, and he has, which is surprising because this could now do Scope a huge favour, because if Phil keeps holding these two Ferraris up, this could allow Scope to push on ahead and build a gap up against Phil and the two Ferraris. So this could be beneficial to Scope if he can make it work for him, but at the minute Phil is just staying within touching distance of him.
Absolutely, and Nikki looking very racy behind Speed Queen, so possibly Speed Queen holding her teammate up at the moment. He's looking very pacey as Sam does the fastest lap of 1:21.729. Phil goes wide, he's going to lose it into turn 60. Oh, he's just about kept it in a straight line. He hit the grass, and obviously wet grass, wet mud on these tyres do not mix at all, but Speed Queen's going to get the inside line, possibly. No, she's not going to commit to it, but Phil really all over the place in these last few laps, and like you say, he definitely looks like he's going to, well, he should be coming in for a pit stop. He's obviously trying to stay out as late as possible, give himself an advantage later in the race, but all he's doing now is losing himself time.
I totally agree, and this is, like I previously said, this is now helping Scope out in front. He's built up a 2.5 second lead over Phil, and if he can keep this pace up and keep the tyres working for him, he can keep going. As Joel has retired, he must have crashed. Not sure what's happened there. I can't see, but it's just flashed up at Joel. He must have crashed, and he's now left the session, which is unfortunate for him. But Phil has stayed out, and he's still keeping the Ferraris tucked up close behind him.
Sammy the Pitto currently on a recovery drive. Obviously had that wing change after losing that front portion of his wing under the safety car. He's sat behind SJD at the moment. They're in now 5th and 6th, with Scott just exiting the pit lane now, but Scott won't be anywhere near them. So Sam in 6th position at the moment, so he's got a lot of work to do if he's going to catch up with the guys ahead. You see they've got roughly around a 20-second lead, so don't count out Sam at all when it comes to being back in the fight, which would be absolutely remarkable, seeing as he managed to keep these guys behind with a broken wing for such a long time. But he really needs to clear SJD as soon as possible.
Yeah, definitely. He needs to get it done now. He's 0.3 of a second behind SJD. He's going to hopefully clear him, and then he'll have 17 seconds of free air to try and pump in some fast laps to close up to both the Ferraris and Phil and Scope, who've yet to pit. Phil is still staying out. He's still decided to remain on his strategy. He's obviously discussed with his McLaren team, and at the minute it's only doing Scopefield a favours here. Scope's now 3.5 seconds ahead of him, and these Ferraris just can't find a way past him, and he's doing a great job at keeping the Ferraris behind, but I think as soon as they're set free, they're going to start pumping in the laps that they probably can be able to do.
Sam gets the move done, and SJD down into turn 10, gets up past the Toro Rosso and up into 5th position. So now on those new extreme wet tyres can start to push a little bit harder and try and bridge this gap that's ahead to these guys that are yet to stop. So Sam, obviously he made that stop 2.5 laps ago, so he's out there he will be setting some fast times now that he's got fresh rubber. And this is where these guys will really need to start looking at their strategy. Don't stay out longer than you really need to, and the rain is not relenting, so it doesn't look like we're going to be going to intermediate tyres, anytime soon, as we see the Ferrari still close up behind Phil, but still these two Ferrari teammates yet to be able to shift past that McLaren.
I can quite imagine there will be a lot of swear words and a lot of frowning faces at the minute for those Ferrari drivers stuck behind, as Scope has pitted. Scope has pitted from the lead, and now Phil retakes the lead with two. Oh no, sorry, Nikki is also into the pit, so just Phil and Speed Queen left now, who have yet to pit.
Yeah, so Nikki getting the choice of strategy when it comes to the two Ferraris. So Nikki deciding to come in on a lap 20, and does he now get an undercut on his teammate? Because this is where this could hamper Speed Queen. She's stuck behind Phil. Phil obviously out there struggling. Now, Nikki really needs to get a move on.
Sorry to interrupt, but Scope on my screen, I don't know about you, Scope on my screen sat in the pit stop. Is that happening on yours?
Yeah,
so not moving.
It looks like Scopefielder may possibly be another unfortunate victim of the pit stop glitch, which we've seen affect us a couple of times over the last season or two. So if that's the case, that's absolutely devastating for the Red Bull and the his title hopes. And yeah, it's really unfortunate to see for Scopefielder. It looks like he's still sat in the pit lane, and Scopefielder will be absolutely livid with that. And he was running very, very nicely indeed, was well in chance of a top or of a podium, if not the race win, but looks like he is out of the running for this evening. So that's going to really open up the field for a possible new podium placer.
Gutted for him, I really am. At first I thought he got a stop-go penalty or something, and then I've seen he was just tumbling down the times and still said pit. I didn't realise that's what had happened, but as I'm watching now, Phil is finally coming to the pits, but the problem is his teammate Stifler is also in the pits, which is holding him up briefly. That is not going to help him whatsoever. Now he's only just, I'm not sure what's that was weird. On my game then, Phil was doing donuts in the pit lane. God knows what was going off there, but Phil is off again now, but he was held up briefly by his teammate, which definitely won't have helped him.
As Renner picks up another penalty, so it's a 5-second stop go for speeding into the pit lane. Phil actually crossed the white line on the exit of the pit lane there, as we see SJD taking a rather scenic route across the grass there on the entry of turn 3. And that's good. Oh, Phil's lost control, just about gets it slowed down there, and Phil really ragged into turn 6 there. You could see the front end was completely gone from underneath him. It's almost like he was aquaplaning, and luckily for him he managed to get it stopped, because that car looked like it was about to take off. It was going that quick. So Phil, possibly knowing that he's lost a little bit of time, pushing ever so slightly too hard, knowing that possibly after that such good pace in qualifying that the race is slowly starting to get away from him.
Unfortunately for him, it does look like that now, and look who's there to take advantage of that. Speed Queen is now in the lead of this race, as she's just come into the pits now. So Speed Queen into the pits.
Yeah, but look at what's happened in those laps time. She's just come in now. Nicky has already made his stop, and he now takes the race lead. He almost made up an entire pit stop's worth of time over his teammate. And like we were talking about with the undercut, look at the size of that undercut. She's going to come out well down the order. So Speed Queen, unless she made an incident, is going to lose a whole heap of time out there on the tyres.
Yeah, I didn't realise how much of far back she dropped down there. That is really compromised her there. And like you say, the undercut has played massively in favour for Nikki now. Nikki now has made up so far 8 places, is in first place and looking for victory tonight. So we've got a yellow in sector 2. We've seen a lot of yellow flags this evening. Maybe, not sure who it's for, sorry. But Renner, once again, I think he's going for most penalties in one race. He's picked up another penalty, 5 seconds.
Yeah, that yellow was for Stifler 1980. He took a trip across the grass there, couldn't get the car slowed down in time, and Stifler struggling down in 11th position at the moment. Schofield is actually back out on track now, so interesting to see what happened from the Swedish driver's point of view there. He's back out on track, but well down the points now. He's in 10th position, and look at the gap between the drivers at the moment. So he's almost in threat of being lapped shortly. You can see the leaders coming down the back straight into the final corners now. So it's not happiest of races for Scopefielder.
No, I can't imagine that would be a very happy Swedish driver in that car at the minute. Especially where he was as well. Whether it was a glitch with the game or something, we'll have to wait and see. But he's just going to hope to see if he can finish the race now, at least get a point, get something from this race, finishing 10th place. But yeah, not a good race for him, as we've seen just briefly as well. I'm sure I've seen Phil, he picked up the new fastest lap, so he looks like he's now got that car and tyres up to temperature and is now on the attack of SJT. He's only 0.6 of a second behind at the minute.
Yeah, Phil MCFC, he's down in 4th position at the moment. He's got a clear to SJD, and SJD's done very nicely indeed. He's up into 3rd position at the moment. We've seen SJD do well in the wet before. Of course, took the race victory last season in France in the wet. So SJD, a comfortable driver in the wet when he gets into the groove. So he, I think, has a few penalties as well. So we'll look to see if SJD can do well, or Phil gets a much better run through the final chicane there. He's going to be tucked in nice and tightly behind the Toro Rosso going down into turn 1. Does he make a move? Or he's just about going to stay with him, but almost nose to tail between the Toro Rosso and the McLaren.
I don't know if you noticed there as well, Nicky in 1st place has just picked up a 5-second stop-go penalty. So if Sam hasn't got any time penalties, Sam will effectively take the lead of the race if he cannot build up at least 5 seconds over Sam at the minute. He's currently at 1.5 seconds between 1st and 2nd place.
Yeah, and that would just show what like I said before, remarkable race it would be for Sam after picking up extreme wing damage under the safety car. He's fought back into what is now 2nd position, but like you say, with Nicky picking up that penalty, that would promote the Spanish driver up into the lead of the race once again. Nicky would drop down at the moment to 3rd position, possibly even 4th position behind Phil, though Phil's gone wide and he's hit the wall there. Not 100% sure how that happened. It seemed to be under acceleration on the exit of turn 10 there. He'd cleared the first section of the acceleration point. It's almost like he took his foot off the accelerator and then put it back on, and he got all out of shape and hit the wall on the entry of Casino Straight there at turn 11. But Phil, he loses all that time. 3 seconds now he's dropped back behind SJD, who's going to be absolutely delighted with a little bit of a respite, knowing that Phil's going to have to do a whole heap of work if he's going to try and catch up to him once again.
It's been a real struggle for Phil, hasn't it, in this race? He's fantastic qualifying for him, but he's just can't quite get to grips with these conditions, unfortunately, for him, and it's going to end up costing him the race victory, which after qualifying he really did deserve, but you don't always get what you deserve, unfortunately, and these conditions and this track has really bit him hard tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's now got Scopefielder behind him, and unfortunately Scopefielder, a lap down now, will be absolutely gutted that he's fighting with the right people at the front, but unfortunately he's a lap down and he can't really move past Phil, because obviously he'd then immediately pick up those blue flags once again. So this is turning out to be an incredibly frustrating race for Scopefielder, and GP1 Alex says it looks like the 2016 Monaco pit crew had come for Scopefielder, not having the right tyres for him when he came into the pit stall, and you'd tend to agree with that. It would be devastating for Scope and equally for his title hopes.
Yeah, definitely. He's at the minute he's only 6.5 seconds behind Renner, as Phil has just picked up a 3-second time penalty now, so it's not really going great for him. But yeah, as I was saying, Scope is only 6.5 seconds behind Renner, and Renner with his mountain of penalties he's got, Scope will take 9th place, so that is a crumb of comfort for him in this tough race for him.
Yeah. And another driver I think would be equally frustrated this evening is Speed Queen 80. She was doing very nicely running at the top, but she's been undercut by a whole heap of drivers. So unless, like we say, she made a mistake earlier in the on her in lap, she's dropped all the way down to 5th position now. So with her teammate up in the lead at the moment, although he's got Sam 7/10 of a second behind him, so Sam looking a lot more racy with 9 laps left to go in the race. Speed Queen, it's not been the best midpoint of the race for her.
No, it really hasn't. She'll be very frustrated. I think she'll have sensed that she could take the victory tonight, and clearly the undercut, if it was the undercut, has cost her that opportunity, because at the minute we have the murk of Scott closing in on her less than a second now, putting her under pressure, so she's unable to focus on going forward, and she's going to end up having mirrors full of a Mercedes shortly.
Yeah, Scott, although having to deal with a lot of penalties, so it's going to be after the race we'll have to total up what everyone's got, and I think everyone might be having a quiet meeting with the stewards this evening to let them know that they have to be driving around the black stuff, not going onto the grass. It's not rallycross here, so but you can't blame some of these guys. Very tricky conditions out there tonight, and I'm sure, Sab, you and I we're not jealous of these guys at all.
Not at all, no. Rather them than me, because by now I personally probably would have put it in the wall. I'm rubbish in the wet, I'll admit that. It's not easy, especially around here. It's very reminiscent of Canada 2011 with the type of conditions, and these guys. I'm not surprised there's penalties and incidents been picked up, because it's just inevitable, these conditions. It's super tricky and incredibly hard not to make a mistake round here, and if you can go round here without making a mistake or picking penalties up in these conditions, 9 times out of 10 you will probably get a race victory or at least a podium.
Absolutely, as Nicky goes deep into turn 10, almost hits the wall there, and Sammy Lopito closing up ever so slightly, lap upon lap. He's now down to, he's lost a little bit of time out of that final corner there, but he was down to 0.6 of a second. It's now up to 9, but the gap is just about coming down as Sam seems to be much stronger through the first and second sector. Nicky stretching out over the final sector, so it's going to be possibly a battle down to the final lap, but with Nicky with that 5-second penalty in store, which will probably turn into a 10-second penalty, it looks at the moment, unless we see an incident in the last few laps, that Sam might have this one sewn up.
And it's been a great race for Sam, really. He did well at the start, overtaking Phil, and superb driving with a damaged front wing to keep the cars behind him. He's looking like he's going to thoroughly deserve this race victory, another race victory for Sam. He is looking very, very dominant early on in the season to take the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be Sam's third win in a row. So it would be a fantastic month or so, for just under a month, for Sam in the No Assist Championship. Took the race win in Japan, took it in Austria. It looks like he's going to be taking it here in Canada tonight, unless something devastating happens. We've got Boy Better Know, he's 0.5 of a second behind Speed Queen. These two joint points at the moment on 36 in Tier 1. But it's Sam that's going to be stretching out a lead to 65 points at the moment, so he's going to be head and shoulders above the field, and with his nearest rival Scopefielder currently in 10th position, only picking up a point, he's going to really build himself a decent gap over the rest of the field. And good evening to Spud watching. Yeah, I'm sure it's, yeah, he says I hope it's dry tomorrow, and yeah, I do agree with you. Like we were just saying, we're not particularly fond of this weather at all, but we see the battle going on at the moment. It's not hampering these guys' enthusiasm and competitiveness for overtakes whatsoever. And Speed Queen, she's often one of those drivers, we say she really knows where to put the car to make it difficult for each other, and she's really making sure she's putting Scott to work if he's going to get that Merc past the Ferrari.
Yeah, you would probably think, if you're aware of the penalties, you probably would you? I'm asking you now. Would you just let the Merc pass, knowing that you're going to end up still taking that position off the Merc at the end, because you don't want this Merc making a silly dive down the inside and potentially taking you out of the race? How would you approach this?
It's one of those, as Sam picks up a fastest lap and Scope picks up a 3-second penalty. It's one of those ones where you have to really assess the risks of letting that driver through, because if you let Scott through and then say pick up a silly penalty at 5-second corner, we've seen them dished out earlier in the race. We've seen a 10-second penalty given out to Renner, so you really have to judge and risk that you can keep it on the black stuff and keep it within the white lines on either side of you, because if she lets Scott go for the sake of not having to worry about looking in her mirrors, and then she makes a mistake, then she loses that position. But equally with these two fighting over 5th and 6th position, I'm sure it's not exactly where they'd like to be fighting. So I think at the moment it's more a case of these two just fighting over a position to have a little bit of fun, rather than obviously knowing that they're going to be getting a podium position out of it.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I probably have to agree with you there. At the minute, Scott's not really doing too much pressure. Yeah, he's there, he's making a presence, but I think at the minute Speed Queen has got Scott covered off for the moment, and I can't really see, unless Speed Queen makes a mistake, I can't really see Scott overtaking her at any point. As Sam once again pumps in another fastest lap, so he's really enjoying himself up front, putting pressure on Nikki.
Yeah, like I said, Nikki's strong down the final straight, and especially through the final corner. Nikki seemingly having that final corner, the chicane at 12 and 13 down this evening, gets a really good launch out of it. And Sam, as Scott picks up another 3-second time penalty, that really does compound Scott's or unfortunate race tonight. That's gonna drop him way back behind Speed Queen at the moment. But yeah, Sam, he's 0.5 of a second behind race leader at the moment, with 4.5 laps left to go in the race. He's probably spoken to his race engineer and knows that Nicky's got a time penalty coming his way, so he knows that he doesn't have to push too hard. He can literally just shadow the Ferrari and possibly even push him into making a mistake. But it's looking pretty inevitable at the moment that Williams will pick up their 3rd win in a row.
Yes, another strong race weekend for Sam. He's really showing us that a Williams can be strong up front, unlike real life Williams. But that's not a horrible dig towards Williams. But yeah, he's doing really well at the minute. He's showing Frank and the rest of the team what he can do in that Williams car. Nicky now just pips Sam for fastest lap with a 1:21.3, so he's showing that he can also put in some fast lap, and he's now just pulled out a 1.3 second lead over Sam, so maybe he's got some pace left in that Ferrari.
Speed Queen and Boy Better Know trading positions over those at the last sector there. Scott got the move done into the hairpin. Speed Queen got a better run. She got back round the outside of him down the straight into the final chicane. So Speed Queen back up into 5th position at the moment. She's probably getting into a battle that she probably doesn't really want. She'll know that Scott's got some penalties, and she won't really want to have to deal with that Mercedes buzzing around her gearbox for too long. But Scott's obviously not going to give up at all, and these two are going to go at each other, I imagine, for the next few laps. And we've seen some fun battles with the two over the last season or two, as both of them are going to... Speed Queen really almost loses the car there, was unsighted by Renault 9's Haas losing control in front of her. She then obviously got out of the throttle. When she put her foot back down, the car just got away from underneath her, and that's allowed Scott to come back down the inside. But yeah, Speed Queen very close there for it all going absolutely cataclysmically wrong and hitting the wall. Very lucky for the Ferrari driver. She's just about kept it in a straight line.
Yeah, that was like you say, very lucky there. Renault just in the wrong place at the wrong time and caught Speed Queen out. Speed Queen now picks up a 3-second time penalty, but I don't think that's going to really matter compared to how many penalties Scott has got ahead of her. But hopefully she can just stick with Scott now for the last few laps and give him a good battle now. Give him a taste of his own medicine and put some pressure on him for the last few laps.
Yeah, and guys, this isn't the only race we're doing this week in the Invictus Racing League. We've got Performance 1, Performance 2 tomorrow night on Twitch.tv. On Wednesday night, we've got F1, F2 and F3 equal performance on Wednesday nights. Realistic performance on Tuesday nights, and the No Assist League on Monday night. So make sure you join us. Go to our socials, Invictus RL on Twitter and on Instagram, Invictus Racing League on Facebook, and go to the website invictusracingleague.com, where you can find the league tables and the forums. Go to the sign up page, get yourself on the grid in Invictus, get involved in the community, and get involved in what has been some pretty fantastic racing. And we see Sam here, he's starting to drop back now. It's 2.3 seconds back to Nicky 995. So Sam possibly Nicky's turning the wick up. He's put a few fastest laps in towards the end of this race, but possibly a little bit in vain, because with that penalty to come to Sam, unless Sam's really starting to struggle, obviously He pitted a lot earlier than Nicky, so Nicky has that benefit of tyres, but Nicky really has to push over the next 2 laps if he's going to stretch out what is, I think, at least a 5-second lead.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of laps too late from the Ferrari pit wall there to time to push. He should have really started to push from about lap 28, 29 if he was going to build up a 5-second lead or so. Maybe it's helping that Sam's tyres are slightly worn now and he's just easing it towards the end of the race, but it's a valiant effort from Nicky, and on another day, if he hadn't had the penalty, he would have claimed the victory. But unfortunately for him, this 5-second penalty is going to end up costing him the race victory.
Yeah. However, I believe Nicky will be pretty happy to pick up a podium tonight. He currently, like I said, only sits on 10 championship points, so to picking up 12 extra points to go with that will be very welcome indeed, and to outscore his teammates B Queen 80, the reigning champion, by quite a considerable margin on his debut back in Ferrari alongside her will be pretty pleasing for him. Phil MCFC down in 4th position at the moment. He's going to be pretty gutted at the moment. He's got a few penalties to contend with late in the race. SJD, he's been the quiet one at the moment. He's a second ahead of Phil, but he's in 3rd position at the moment, so it's going to be a battle between Phil and SJD for the final podium place over the final lap, as we're into lap 35 of 35.
I can't actually tell you without really rewinding the race the penalties between Phil and SJD, because Phil's just picked up another penalty, so I think he's on 6 now, and I'm sure SJD has also got penalties, so I think this race unfortunately is going to go down to penalties on who finishes where, which again you kind of expect it a little bit with weather conditions like this, but until we see, as we've got a yellow flag in sector 2, not sure what that's for, it's quickly gone. But yeah, we're not really going to have a full idea on who's going to finish where from like 3rd down because of penalties.
Now it's Nicky 9095 exits the final chicane. He's going to come across the line, but it looks like it's going to be Sam. Nicky crosses the line. Does he take the drop? He does drop down. So Samuel Thepetto takes the race victory this evening. SJD is going to be the next one across the line. Now who's going to get it out of SJD and Phil? They're going to be coming across the line a second apart. It is SJD that takes 3rd position. Delighted there for SJD. 1988. He jumps Phil. Phil gets jumped by Speed Queen. So Speed Queen up into 4th position. She'll be happy with that. That's much better result for her. Scott is down in 6th position. Nizmax will be the next one down. Scopefielder and Renner have crossed the line. They were lapped earlier in the race, unfortunately. So it's going to be Nizmax and Nevermiss going to be the last ones on the lead lap to cross the line. So it's going to be a good race there for Nizmax 7 after that issue earlier, and equally Nevermiss will be delighted to pick up a couple of points in 8th position in what has been an incredibly tricky race.
Incredibly tricky, yeah, that is so accurate. This race has had plenty of dramas again, obviously with the conditions helping, but a fantastic race victory for Sam. Another win on the board, and he's really now started to cement how serious he is for this championship.
Absolutely. So Sam stretches his lead out front once again, picking up 15 championship points for the race victory tonight, and with Scopefielder, like I say, way down the order, that is going to promote Sam well up the field, well out of reach of the other guys at the moment. He'll have at least a race victories distance between himself and the guys below. So Sam Thepetto starting to look like a real force in the championship in this early stages. In fact, we go to the halfway point in the season next week in Great Britain at Silverstone. So the season, what feels like only started yesterday, is already almost halfway through. So congratulations to Samuel Thepetto tonight for the race victory. Congratulations to Nicky 905 and to SJD. They come home in 2nd and 3rd. Speed Queen comes home in 4th with Phil in 5th. Scott comes home in 6th with Nizmax 7 in 7th. Never Miss comes home without penalties in 8th position. Congratulations to Never Miss there. Scopefielder is in 9th with Renner in 10th position, and unfortunately Stifler finishes outside the top 10, although I believe may be promoted to 10th position due to Renner 9 picking up 24 seconds of time penalties there, so that may change between Stifler and Renner. And unfortunately, we lost Joel, Humberstone, Alex, and Gavpig earlier in the race. Obviously, those three caught in that big accident at the final corner at turn 13. So, Sab, what is your takeaway from that race?
That for me now, Sam has to be the strong favourite for this title. Unless he has a few DNFs or finishes low down the table, I just cannot see people catching him. He is the man in form. He's the man to catch, and he's going to be going to the Great Britain next week full of confidence and looking for another race victory. Can the other guys make any mark on him? At the minute, it's hard to say they can, especially after tonight with Scope, who's had a terrible race for his standards, and it's really put him out of contention to fight Sam for the top spot at the minute. But we shall see. We're only coming up to halfway stage. There's plenty more points to fight for, so who knows? It could swing and completely change again. We shall have to wait and see.
Absolutely. Like you say, there are plenty more points left to fight for in the championship. We go to Silverstone next week, round 6 for the No Assist Championship, the home of British Motorsport, a favourite of many drivers, and I'd expect to see another fantastic race there. And thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Like I say, check out the socials at Invictus RL on Twitter and Instagram, Invictus Racing League on the .com and on Facebook, where you can go to the sign up pages, get involved, get yourself on the grid in Invictus. Check out the streams for tomorrow, Performance 1, Performance 2, and then on Wednesday night for the Equal Performance F1, F2 and F3. And make sure you follow the stream here. Go to the follow button on the No Assist channel, click us on to follow. We need one more follower to get to that elusive 50 where we can become Twitch affiliated. So thank you for everyone for following and getting involved with the streams. It means a lot to us, and to get Twitch affiliation on a channel is a huge deal for us. So thank you very much for supporting the channel. It's always appreciated. And then equally, if you want to go to the YouTube channel, Invictus Racing League, you can watch any of the streams back and get involved there in the comments. So like I said, thank you very much for joining us. It was another fantastic race, and thank you very much, Sab. It's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's been great.
And for everyone tonight, thank you for watching. Thank you for getting involved in the comments, and we will see you round 6 next week, Monday, 7:50. Join us here on twitch.tv, Invictus Racing League No Assist Championship, and we will see you next week.